What's up guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about creating an epic life on your terms. And today we're talking about how to be happier with yourself and how to be happier with your life. The most important thing to understand is that there's always a reason for your unhappiness. There's no such thing as everything is going great and you're still unhappy. I know there are things like depression and there are things in our brain that sometimes cause us to not have enough endorphins. I get that. But I'm talking about the average person who has depressive moods, who has things that are not going greatly in their life, but we're not talking about clinical depression. Even in cases where people are depressed, there are still things they don't feel like doing, but if they would do it, they would help them. And before you think that you're one of those cases where you're just depressed and you can't do anything about it, maybe start thinking about what you can do, what you can change about your life, because there are things that we're causing to our own psyche, to our own well-being, that are causing us to not feel happy. In my experience, one of the main reasons why we're not happy is because we're hiding who we are and we're hiding who we're not. So we see this image of this is how we're supposed to be. Maybe this has been given to us by our parents, by our peers, by our society, and we're not living up to that. Or even if we're living up to that, it doesn't represent who we are. And sometimes it's all about recognizing that. It's recognizing that I am not the person that I think I have to be in order to be liked. Or I'm not the person who I think I have to be in order to be successful in life. It all comes down to not feeling we're good enough and we're enough to begin with, and therefore we try to live up this image that is not us. And this discrepancy is what makes us feel uncomfortable, is what makes us feel trapped, and is keeping us at this place where we're just unhappy all the time. There's this thing going on in the back of our mind that makes us feel like something is missing. I'm not living the life I should be living. So we're gonna talk about a little later how to get over this, how to understand what we want and who we are. But once we do that, we have to realize that we have to move towards it. Even if we realize that there's so much going on, that we're not accepting who we are, even if all of that has happened, unless you actually lean into becoming the person you want to be, unless you're leaning into the life you want to live, you're always going to feel trapped. You're always going to feel unhappy because you're not taking active control over your life. That is what we have to master. That is what we have to learn. And once you take on this journey, once you take on this step, you feel the gratification like nothing else. The next step is actually to accept where we are. There is no such thing, if I had $1 million, I would be happy. If I would have a partner, I would be happy. If I would finish this class, if I would get my diploma, if I would lose weight, I would be happy. There is no such thing. We have to be happy today in order to be happy tomorrow. I used to live like this. I used to feel like, oh, I'm just waiting for this one person to see my value, then I'm gonna be happy. Or once I'm successful in my current job, I would be happy. And guess what? The years went by and I was not happy. That's not gonna help you. You're not gonna feel better through this. You have to be happy today with what you have in order to be able to maximize this and get happier and more fulfilled in life altogether. So how do we do that? Well, we look at the ugly truth. We look at our life right now. Who are we right now if somebody would objectively look from the outside? Always knowing there is no such thing as objectivity here. I'm asking about you. If you would meet yourself today, what would you think about that person? What would you think about the life that person has chosen? And I really mean at this point in this journey, to be honest with you. I mean ruthlessly honest. That you really look at your life, that you look who you are and how you show up and say, if nothing else would change, if my life would be how it is right now and it would never get better, how would I feel? What is it that I don't like? And then maybe you'll realize, well, actually, I think my life is boring. Well, actually, I feel isolated. I'm not surrounded by the people that make me feel good about myself, that actually see my value. I'm not bringing anything to the table of what I have to give. It's really important to look at that, to really look at that ugly truth and to accept it. Because before we can try to improve our life, before we actually start loving ourselves and teaching ourselves that we are enough, We have to first accept the person that we are instead of trying to go left and right to just take our mind from what is actually going on and why we're unhappy. That was a process that actually was really hard for me, but that was the most important step in all of this, to really accept that my life, if I would look at it right now and it would not get better, I found it boring, I didn't find it challenging, and I definitely wasn't living my authentic life. That was what was mainly missing from my freedom and my happiness. Then ask yourself, what kind of life would you have chosen? If you would have to write this book again, if you would say, now I want to start living my life, and trust me, there's no such thing as too late, because the only thing that matters is how you feel at that moment. And every moment you choose you, every moment, and it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 65 or 80, the moment you decide, I'm gonna choose me, I'm gonna make myself the priority in my life, and I'm gonna start building my life for me, that's the moment your real life, in a way of this feels great, starts. It does not mean that the life until this point was wasted, not at all. Actually, it's about understanding that no matter what you choose for your life, you already have everything that it takes. It's important to understand that you made the decisions you made that got you where you are right now because of stuff that happened in the past, and now it's time to live in the present and to change all of those narratives that have kept us here for so long. And be honest with yourself. Who are you not? If you, for example, are working in the finance world, how I was, because this is the background I've grown up in. My parents both work in banking. My parents both are programmers. So I was always in the finance world. I was always in the tech world. And that was not the path for me. And it took me a while to get to a point where I realized this is not the place where my best qualities come forward. We have to distinguish between the person that we actually want to be, because that's who we are inside, and who we think we have to be in order to fit in order to be liked and accepted. And then grief. Like seriously, grief. Grieve the loss of a dream. Grieve the loss of what could have been. You need that time, because until you grieve the path that never was, the path where you could have been this perfect image that everybody would have liked, that would have healed so much of what you've been carrying for so long, that little girl or that little boy inside you always just wanted to do right in order to be loved. And that little person, your little version of yourself, is always with you and is always trying to prove to the world that it is good enough. And we have to grieve that. We have to grieve that it never happened. We have to grieve that it will never happen, that it will never be, that this longing will be fulfilled. Once we do that, once we realize that our childhood trauma could not be solved, it could not be healed because this should have happened back then, that's when our adult self can take the lead and can actually change our life and say, from now on, I'm gonna take care of you. From now on, I'm gonna be your best friend, and I'm gonna make sure you never have to suffer like this again, because you are enough, and I'm gonna create the epic life for you. Decide that you're going to be the leading character of your movie. From now on till forever. You're not going to be the best friend anymore. You're not going to be the support system. That does not mean that you can't do those things, but it means that your main focus is on you. If we decide to be the parent to our inner child, we have to make sure that we show ourselves how much we love ourselves. Just imagine you would meet yourself as a little kid, because part of our psyche is still there, right? So imagine you would meet her or you would meet him, and this little person has been told by you for years, you're not good enough, what you want doesn't matter, we're just gonna try to make whatever everybody else wants happen. And you have to realize that you caused this. This is a huge process in understanding what has been going on in order to be able to change the narrative. Because now I, as the parent to my inner child, will take the charge. I will make sure that my little girl never ever has to feel like this again. I will make sure that I show her how much I love her, and that I will take the steps to make her life better. And once you decide to be the center of attention of your life, to be the center of the universe of your life, you will lose people. And that's not because you're being selfish. It's because you will change the dynamic with every person in your life. It happens automatically because up until that point, we're waiting for something. We're waiting for people to tell us we're enough. And we were waiting for them to do that while trying to be the best version they would want us to be in order to get the respect and the appreciation we long for so much. But the moment you decide, I'm going to stand up for me, what I want matters most in my life, and you realize that there is nothing bad about this, that this is actually the best thing you can do for others altogether, because you're not only being an inspiration for them to step up for them, but you will have so much more to give because first off, you're giving oxygen to yourself. You know how we say in planes, first give oxygen to yourself before you give it to somebody else. Now is the time. That's the moment where you have to decide you're gonna stand up for yourself. And with that, every dynamic in your life will change. And with that, there will be people who will not accept the new dynamic, who will say this dynamic is not enough for me. And you have to be willing to make that cut. Because even if you think you're disappointing people, or even if you think you're letting people down, you've been letting yourself down for too long. And now it's time to stand up for yourself, to be your own best friend, because it's never your responsibility to fix somebody else. It's not only not your responsibility, you don't even have the power to do that. The only power that you have, and you have that so tremendously, is to take care of yourself, to do those steps that will change your life forever. And that is what makes you happier with your life. That is what makes you happier with yourself. Dare to fail greatly. You have to be willing to show up as the person that you are at that moment and know that people will see your imperfections. Because that is what is keeping us from this, isn't it? If you really think about it. What is actually keeping you from voicing your thoughts? What is actually keeping you from saying, I want to be a singer and I'm going to go for it and I'm going to do it? It's that people will look at you and will say, well, she's not good enough, or who does he think he is? Or, oh, that's not really good. Well, guess what? It won't be good. Specifically when you start, whatever you start with, in the beginning, you will suck at it. And even if it is that you aim to have a better life that has nothing to do with a public life, even you saying, I'm daring to study medicine, or if you say, I'm daring to go for that management position, do you know how many people shy away from this? Because then they would admit to everybody who is not daring to make that step that you think you got what it takes. And that is scary. That is tremendously scary. So you gotta be willing to fail greatly. You gotta be willing for people to see your imperfections, to see that you're not this ideal person that you thought you could pretend to be by not stepping forward at all. That's one of the most important lessons I learned. And if you look at my first videos, you see how imperfect they are. You see how I was not as confident with who I am today in that capacity, but I still dared to do that. And I knew that people would look at it and then they would have an opinion about it. And I was willing to take that risk. I was willing for people to think, oh, she's not cool enough, or whatever they might think. They probably didn't even think that, but that was going on in my head. I had to make that decision. I had to make that discernment that this is what matters most. And you will get to a point where you'll know there is no stepping back from this, because the life that I had led so far is not gonna lead me where I want it to be. So everything was better than this. So me stepping up into the person I wanted to be was the best thing I could have done for myself. But you gotta be willing to fail greatly. And that's not an if. You will fail, because failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. You know that successful people have failed more than others have even tried. You gotta be willing to do that and understand that this has nothing to do with who you are and what you're about. This is just a skill. This is just a stepping stone. It's about taking one more step. It's about falling down and getting up one more time. Find an archetype that will help you to get to that next level. There's so many archetypes you can find online. There are superheroes. There are people from magazines. There are people you look up to. There are musicians. See, all of this is just an image, but it doesn't matter. What matters is if you can see yourself in that person. When you look at that person or that archetype or that character in a movie, do you see somebody that you want to be? Do you see a quality that you want to embody? Then take that on. Allow yourself to step into those archetypes to help you to the next step. We're all imperfectly unique, but those archetypes, that is you. Because who I see in one person is somebody completely different than the next person sees. The person you see in the other one, the person you see in that character, that is a part of you. That is a part of you that you're imprinting on that person. So all of that is in you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling that. So what is a step you can take that would prove to you that you're becoming more and more of that person that you see in that character, in that archetype, in that image? And then once you've done all this internal work, start being grateful. We have to understand that if you can't feel happy with what you have right now, what makes you think you're gonna be happier with more? Because there's always a possibility that you could have less than you have now. And that person would look at you where you are right now with the situation you're in right now and would just say, oh, if I would be like her or if I would be like him, I would be happy. So there is no such thing as the grass is greener somewhere else. There is no such thing as once I have that job, I'm going to be happy. Or once I reach these many subscribers, I'm going to be happy. Or once I have this partner, I will be happy. It only happens if you start being happy with what you have right now. And that's why gratitude is so important. We can only maximize what we already feel. So even if you have a day and the entire day feels horrible, you don't know what to be grateful for, pick one little thing, even if it's just the coffee in the morning. And you might think, who cares about a coffee? My life is going down the drain and I'm supposed to be grateful about this coffee, which is like 1% of my day? Yes, because in order to make this 1% into 10%, 20%, 50%, 100%, you have to focus on that 1%. You cannot focus on 99% of what you do not want in order to change your life, because our mind can't handle it. If I tell you, don't think about a pink elephant, what do? You think about the pink elephant. But if I tell you, focus on how delicious this coffee was, and you sitting down in this peaceful environment and enjoying that moment, once you start focusing on those things, once you start focusing on what you do have, what you can be proud of, even if it's something like I was able to get up, take a shower, and do something productive instead of sitting on the couch all day. And even if you were sitting on the couch all day and you were able to get up and just take a walk around the park, that's an accomplishment. That's a step forward. That's what we have to focus on and be grateful for if we want to have a better life, if we want to be grateful, if we want to be happier, and if you want to create more for ourselves. We got to be happy with what we have now in order to maximize it for the future. And I know what I'm talking about. I used to have it all on paper. I used to have the great job. I used to have all that money. I used to stay at Hilton. I had diamond status. I was staying at presidential suites in Hilton sometimes and private villas, but I was just happy for that moment. It didn't make me happy in the long run. It didn't make me happy in all of the other time. I was not deflecting myself from what was really going on and the life choices I was making. We have to start focusing on the things we're really grateful for, because then we can focus more on this. Do not think once you have more, you will feel great. You've heard of so many successful people, who tell you, oh, I just want people to make $1 million to realize that this is not the solution. We know from so many celebrities or people we know that this will not make you happy. What will make you happy is to lean into the person you want to be. And you have to start with it right now. So start being grateful for every little thing, because there is no such thing as once you've reached this level, all is going to be great. There is no such thing. There's always a higher level. There's always the people who make more millions, and there are always the people who have an even better relationship, and there are always the people who have even more success. It will not be the answer. And last but not least, you can understand all of this. You can realize how much luck you have in your life to be where you're at and to be grateful for everything you do. You have to make a move. You have to take the steps in order to improve your life. Because it's not about reaching that one goal. It's about showing yourself that you love yourself enough to make the moves to lean into a better life. That's what actually makes us feel good. I'm happy every single day, but the day that made the biggest difference for me is the day I decided from now on I'm gonna show up for myself. It's those steps. It's the moment you start taking control of your destiny because you are in control. Yes, the universe co-creates with us and we have to let go and allow things to happen, but there are a lot of things we do have control over. For example, if you're in a situation that is not making you happy, what can you do to improve that? See, once I started my last job, I did that knowing that I needed more excitement. It was not the thing that was the big all thing for me, but I didn't know that at that time. I just needed to know that I was ready for the next step. I wanted to prove myself what I can do. And from that point, I realized what I'm willing to do and what I'm not. That's the moment when I stopped working, when I started doing this full time and creating this epic life for myself. But none of this would have happened if I didn't make that step, that first day where I said, today I'm gonna start stepping up for myself. What would be the thing that would make my life better? You are in control and you gotta make those steps. You gotta lean into it. You can crawl, you don't have to run, but do that. Change your life. We always overestimate what we can do in a week and we underestimate what we can do in a year. So where do you want to be in a year? What steps are you taking in order to become the person who leans into the life she or he wants to have? And I know you might be lacking motivation. Most people do that. Most people lack motivation. But that's the moment where you start really stepping up for your inner girl or your inner boy. That's the moment where you actually show yourself self-love. Because right now you wouldn't be motivated, but that does not mean that your little girl, your little boy, and even you, your adult self, wouldn't feel greater 1 year from now once you've taken those steps. Dare to fail greatly. Dare to lean into the person you want to be, even if you don't have the motivation right now. Little steps that prove to you that you're going to be focusing on what you already have because you already realize what you're not going to get from the outside, that you're the only one who can make it happen for you. It doesn't have to be some huge thing that you have to get done in 1 day or 1 year, but it's about those steps. It's about leaning into the person you want to be, and you'll see how happy you can be. I never thought I could be that happy in my life. I really thought that was it and it could never get better, and I know now how different it can be once I step up for myself. You are enough. You are enough the way you are. You do not have to prove yourself to anybody. Just step up and do the steps in order to become more of the person that makes you happy. If you want to dive deeper, check out all the links on one-on-one coaching on the EPIC Life Masterclass, and definitely watch the video on the 5 self-love habits that changed my life. Like always, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I talk to you next time. Bye.